Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a word you've probably heard a million times, but maybe only know a little bit about. We're talking about halal. And I guarantee you, by the end of this, you're going to see that it's so much more than what's on your dinner plate. So let's get right into it. So, I've got a question for you. When you hear the word halal, what's the very first thing that pops into your mind? For a lot of us, it's probably a sticker on some meat at the grocery store, or maybe a special menu at a restaurant. And you know what? You're not wrong, but that is just scratching the surface. See, halal isn't really about a list of foods. It's a whole framework for living, kind of like a blueprint that touches on pretty much every part of your day. It's all about making mindful, conscious choices, and today we're going to break down what that actually looks like. So, where do you even start with a system this big? Well, it all boils down to one single core idea. This is the guiding principle that unlocks everything else. Okay, here it is. At its heart, the logic is super simple. It's all about benefit versus harm. Things that are good for your mind, your body, and the community around you are considered halal or permissible, and anything that's harmful to them is haram or forbidden. It's not just a random set of rules. It's a filter. Is this choice helpful or is it hurtful? That's the key. All right, so let's see this principle in action. We'll start with the place most people are familiar with, food, and then we'll connect it to something you might not have thought about, your money. So with food, that benefit versus harm logic is really clear. Halal foods are things considered pure and wholesome, like meat from properly raised animals. On the flip side, haram foods are things seen as impure or harmful, like pork or dead animals. But check out that last point on the right. It's not just about what you're eating, it's also about the money you used to buy it. And this isn't just a cultural idea, it's rooted in scripture. This verse from the Quran lays out those core dietary rules very clearly, so you can see that direct line from the foundational text to the dinner table. And that brings us to your pocketbook. The idea is if your money comes from a harmful source, then anything you buy with it is kind of tainted. So jobs that help society, things like teaching, building things, medicine, those are halal. But work that's based on things considered harmful, like charging interest, gambling, or selling forbidden stuff, well, that's seen as haram. Okay, so we've talked food, we've talked finance. Now let's get even more personal. Let's see how this whole framework applies to something we all think about every single morning: what to wear. When it comes to clothing, it's not just about the item itself. There are basically 3 layers to it. First, the material has to be from a pure source. Second, the style needs to be modest. It should cover what it's supposed to cover. And third, and this is a big one, your intention matters. You should be dressing for piety and humility, not to be arrogant or to show off. Now, for men, the specific guidelines focus on making sure the area from the navel to the knees is covered. There are also a couple of interesting rules, like pure silk and gold being forbidden, as they're seen as extravagant. The theme, again, is all about humility and avoiding pride. For women, the guidelines focus on more coverage, with the general rule being that the whole body is covered except for the face and hands. And the principles of modesty are really key here, so nothing too tight or see-through. And just like for men, the intention is to prioritize piety over public display. And remember that rule about silk and gold? Well, here's where it comes from. This is a hadith, a saying from the Prophet Muhammad, and it draws that clear line, saying these materials are fine for women, but forbidden for men. It just reinforces those different guidelines we just talked about. So after all this, you might be thinking, wow, this sounds really strict. But what's fascinating is that the system actually has a built-in safety valve for emergencies. It shows a kind of ethical flexibility when something more important is on the line, like saving a life. So let's just imagine a tough scenario. What if the only medicine that can save someone's life has a forbidden ingredient in it, like alcohol or something derived from pork, and there is no halal alternative? What do you do then? Well, the answer is right here, actually. In the very same verse we looked at earlier about food, there's this principle called darurat, or necessity. And it basically says that if you are forced by a desperate situation, like saving your life, and you're not doing it because you want to break the rule, then the prohibition is lifted. Preserving human life becomes the top priority. So, as we start to pull all of these different pieces together, food, money, clothing, even life or death situations, you start to see the bigger picture. This isn't just a list of separate rules. It's one single, connected way of looking at the world. And this, right here, is probably the most important thing to remember. It's really easy to look at all this and just see a list of don'ts. But that's not the point. The real focus is on the do's. It's about proactively choosing what's good, what's beneficial, and what's pure in every single thing you do. It's a mindset, which kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Is halal just a fixed list of rules you have to follow? Or is it more like a living question you ask yourself every day? Is this choice I'm about to make a good one for my mind, for my body, and for my community? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.